Hey guys, welcome to Digit.in and we are back again with some more smartphone shenanigans. Today we're talking about the Realme Narzo 20 series, particularly the Narzo 20 Pro and the Realme Narzo 20. There's also the Narzo 20A that's yet to land up in our labs, but when it does, we'll surely tell you guys about it. Now, both of these smartphones seems pretty good for the price and might make you think twice before buying any other Realme mid-range smartphone. Now, when we got our hands on these two new offerings, it felt like a simple review video won't just do justice, because the hardware and the rest of the features found in these two smartphones are also found elsewhere, but not in the same combination. I mean, surely the 90Hz refresh rate display, 65 watts of fast charging may sound impressive, but we wanted to check out how both of these smartphones perform overall, and if you are in the market of buying a mid-range smartphone, especially a Realme smartphone, which one should you go for? So buckle your seatbelts. This one's going to be a fun ride. Oh, before we start, here's a quick reminder for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and do follow us on Instagram as well for more such test-based content. The link is given in the description below. Okay, let's begin. We're going to start with the spec sheet of these two smartphones to highlight all the important features that may sway your decision. But despite sharing the same name and even falling under the same lineup, both of these are two completely different smartphones, and there are differences that impact the performance on both of them. For one, the Narzo 20 Pro gets a 90Hz Full HD Plus display, where the Narzo 20 sticks to a regular HD Plus display. For its price, the Narzo 20's panel may not live up to the expectations. Both rely on 12nm chipsets, but the Narzo 20 Pro has a more powerful GPU and the newer CPU architecture, and we expect major performance differences. Even the storage module used in the Narzo 20 seems older. The 20 Pro uses UFS 2.1 storage, in line with what most others offer. There's one camera less on the Narzo 20, which you likely won't miss because the feature is still there, but the biggest difference is in the batteries. The Narzo 20 Pro uses a dual-cell 4500 mAh battery with Realme's most powerful charging solution, infusing the phone with 65 watts of power. The Narzo 20, on the other hand, goes big on the battery capacity itself, matching the Galaxy M series with a 6000 mAh battery, but with only 18 watts of fast charging, which means the Narzo 20 Pro will need quick charges between the day, while the Narzo 20 should last well over a day on a single charge. Let's see what the tests have to show. Let's start with the design. Both the Narzo 20 and the 20 Pro rely on polycarbonate for the exterior casing. I got scratches on the rear panel of the Narzo 20 Pro less than a week after opening out of the box. In fact, the Narzo 20 felt more durable to me. It has micro ridges on the surface, so it doesn't scratch or attract smudges. Both smartphones have physical fingerprint sensor, much faster than the in-display sensor on the Realme 7 Pro. It boils down to where you prefer the sensor to be, at the back or on the side. From the front though, the Narzo 20 Pro looks identical to the Realme 7 Pro. A single punch hole camera and thin bezels. Only this one has a 90Hz LCD display, solving one big pain point for those asking for 65 watt charging along with high refresh rate from Realme. But there are trade-offs. For one, the Realme 7 Pro's AMOLED display is much brighter and has better colors. It's also a lot more usable outdoors in the sun. The Narzo 20's choice of sticking to an HD Plus display is a lot more interesting. I mean, it's competing head-on with the Poco M2 and the Xiaomi Redmi Note 9, both of which tout Full HD Plus displays. The Redmi Note 9 even matches the Narzo 20 in terms of the processor and the camera stack. The display isn't bad per se, it's good enough for catching up on your shows before bed, but there's a stark upgrade in panel quality if you choose to pay a little more for the Narzo 20 Pro. But forget the display, forget the design, the Narzo series is apparently all about performance. Back when the series debuted, Realme did mention that the Narzo series is going to be more catered towards gamers looking for a good performance on a tight budget. At least that was the case when PUBG Mobile was still operational, and the previous Nazo 10 series did handle the now banned but quite popular Battle Royale game quite well. So how does the Nazo 20 series fare? While we still await the results of the Nazo 20A, the 20 and the 20 Pro should handle the next best alternative Call of Duty Mobile well enough to live up to its name. Well, at least the Nazo 20 Pro is, somewhat. The Nazo 20 Pro can run the game with most of the graphics element enabled, so you get near about the flagship experience. The gameplay is smooth for amateur gaming. We clocked 56 frames per second at 100% stability with everything maxed out. However, further analysis of the session by Gamebench reveals there were a lot of janks in the gameplay, which is micro stutters that you may come across, like a bullet hitting the enemy a few moments after you press the trigger during a close quarter scenario. The Nazo 20 is a whole different story. The MediaTek Helio G85 powering the phone only has a 2-core Mali GPU, so this can't be a gaming phone by any means. COD Mobile runs crippled at medium graphics with only depth of field and shadows enabled. It does manage to hit 58 frames per second with everything maxed out, but with only 46% stability. So despite Realme's word on how the Nazo series will delight performance enthusiasts, the Nazo 20 Pro seems to be the only smartphones in this lineup that is good enough to live up to that name. In daily usage, the Nazo 20 Pro feels expectedly faster thanks to the higher refresh rate. It's also fast at unlocking from cold, launching apps, as well as what you saw earlier in gaming. When played against the competition, the Poco M2 Pro seems to be well ahead with the Snapdragon 720G, but like we said before in the Realme 7 video, the MediaTek Helio G95 is quite a snappy performer. The Nazo 20 on the other hand feels sluggish, especially when compared against the Poco M2 and the Redmi Note 9. Realme UI is fast, but the 4GB RAM and the Helio G85 SoC doesn't feel very convincing. Oh, and lastly, you want to know an unsettling fact? The Nazo 20 actually came out better during sustained performance as compared to the Nazo 20 Pro. Both experienced thermal throttling, but the Nazo 20 Pro was far more adversely affected than the Nazo 20. Okay, now let's take a look at the camera performance. The Nazo 20 and the 20 Pro relies on the same camera hardware more or less. The 48 megapixel Samsung GM1 sensor as the primary camera with an f1.8 aperture lens, along with an 8 megapixel ultra-wide lens and 2 megapixel macro lens. The Nazo 20 Pro has an additional 2 megapixel depth sensor. On the front, the Nazo 20 gets an 8 megapixel selfie shooter, while the 20 Pro sports a 16 megapixel punch hole camera. In the day, the Nazo 20 Pro's photos come out looking brighter and with a little more details, while the Nazo 20's shot look a little too saturated. Notice the greens in the sample here. Interestingly, even though both rely on the same sensor, the dynamic range is also visibly better on the Nazo 20 Pro than the Nazo 20. Indoors, a dimly lit kitchen in the afternoon had to be captured using the night mode to bring out some details. The Nazo 20 Pro does fairly well in brightening the scene, while the Nazo 20 struggles. It has more noise and negligible details. Now at low light, the Nazo 20 Pro and the Nazo 20 both has the night mode to play around with, but the results are largely unusable. Yes, the Nazo 20 Pro does output a brighter image, but the Nazo 20's photos are completely riddled with noise and minimal details. Okay, both phones are able to capture portrait photos quite well though, the Nazo 20 even without having a physical depth sensor. As for macros, well, let's just say it's better left unused. Now we have saved the best for the last. The Nazo 20 Pro makes things compelling by bringing the 65-watt super dart charger for under Rs 15,000. That's certainly going to turn some heads and make the Realme 7 seem pretty ancient. The 4500 mAh battery, however, drains out quickly. I observed a 6% drop during a 15-minute COD run, while 30 minutes of watching House on Amazon Prime drained the power by 8%. While I couldn't explicitly record a screen on time with normalized usage, this seems to power through most of the day, requiring a 5-minute top-up for the rest of the day. The Nazo 20 on the other hand is a marathon runner. The 6000 mAh battery is hard to drain in a day no matter what you do. But when you eventually do, it's a long wait by the power source with only 18 watts charging support. Can't really call it fast now, can we? Did we do enough tests? It seems out of the ones we did, the Narzo 20 Pro feels pretty good for the price. I mean, the 90Hz refresh rate display, 65 watts of fast charging, and that MediaTek Helio G95 processor makes it pretty good for budding mobile gamers, and it feels pretty fast and snappy to use, just how a mid-range smartphone should feel like. The Narzo 20 may need some thinking over, especially when the Poco M2 and the Redmi Note 9 also exist in that price point. But regardless of the specs, there's marginal trade-offs in performance, and the Narzo 20A does feel quite right because of the big battery inside. Everything else is strictly entry level. So yeah, that was our take on the new Realme Narzo 20 series. We hope this clears up the confusion and helps you make the right decision. Like always, let us know what you thought of this video and the phones in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to Digit.in. I'll see you later.